welcome to the Spector Creative channel. I'm your host, Scott Toy Guru Neitlich, longtime collector and longtime toy maker in the industry. And today, as you can tell, we're talking about Star Wars, one of my favorite movies, right up there with Hudson Hawk and sneakers. So, Star Wars is obviously one of the most recognizable brands around the world, and with toy fans and collectors, it's something we're incredibly passionate about. But it's gone through a lot of changes, and I don't mean the fact that, the original concept art changed along. I mean that there have physically been changes to characters over the years, additions to the storyline, and, characters aren't always what they started off as. I mean, heck, Yoda started off as a little elf, and Han Solo started off as a guy in a cape and a beard and carrying a lightsaber. So with all the changes that have come over the years, it's kind of important to look back and realize that changes to Star Wars were there from the very beginning, both from concept art to what wound up on the screen to even the way it was released. I mean, in 1977, there was no A New Hope. There was no Episode 4. It was just Star Wars. It didn't get the A New Hope Episode 4 addition to the crawl until the re-release 2 years later in prep for Empire. Now that they knew there was a sequel coming out. The biggest changes of all probably came from the special edition in 1997. It's pretty notorious at this point, all of the changes made to the original film and the two original sequels. One of the more visual ones that people remember is Jabba the Hutt being put into the film in Docking Bay 94, and heck, he was even changed again in 2004 with a new model. And then, of course, there was the Disney acquisition, which led to even more changes. And that's what I want to kind of go over today, because when Star Wars became the property of the Mouse House, well, not only did it greenlight new content, and well, not just new content, but unlimited new content, something we've never had in Star Wars before, where there is going to be forever new content coming. But in addition to that, well, Disney is still tinkering with both Star Wars as far as the films and the brand. And I thought it would be important, interesting, enlightening to sort of document some of these bigger changes. Because the changes that Disney is making, unlike sort of what happened in the special edition or adding Episode 4, A New Hope, to the original 1977 release 2 years later, well, some of the changes they're making are kind of to the core DNA of the brand. And I thought it was important to sort of document this. So one of the more obvious or bigger ones is that the concept of slavery is sort of being phased out, shall we say, of the property. Specifically, Leia in her Jabba palace garb used to be referred to as Slave Leia. And I don't know how this is going to affect things like droids, who refer to their owner as Master, Master Luke. But as far as calling Leia Slave Leia, well, this is out. That name is never used, although that, wasn't that important that she was called Slave Leia. I mean, there's a million other names. You could call her Jabba's Palace, or what I believe the new official name is Hutt Slayer Leia, which, I don't know, that's kind of anti-Hutt, isn't it? Well, either way, that's her new name, but what's even bigger is we won't really be getting any more merchandise of her. Disney, for good or ill, feels that it's really not in jive with the way their company sees brands. And while we've had tons of merchandise of Hutt Killer, Hutt Slayer, or I'm still going to call her Slave Leia. That's because that's what she was called here in the merchandise. We've had a lot of merchandise of Slave Leia, and it's ranged from the more adult to your standard action figures to the earlier shown Lego figure. So she's been in a lot of merchandise. And from what it looks like is we won't be getting any more merchandise of Princess Leia in this outfit ever again. So enjoy what you have, and there's been a lot of it. Another one along this line is Boba Fett's starship, or spaceship, which, while it is now called Boba Fett's starship, that's not what we've been calling it for the last 40 years or 35 years. It has been known as Slave One, and this was what it was called in the original Kenner toy, very boldly on the back, although it could be Slave I. And again, in even Attack of the Clones in the prequels, Jango Fett's ship was still Slave One, now using a Arabic number 1 instead of the Roman numeral 1. The original Lego release also Slave One, using the Arabic number, not the Roman number that the Kenner figure used, so it would be Slave I. Well, the latest release of this ship in the Mandalorian line, it is now officially called Boba Fett's Starship. So the name Slave One, or Slave, from the name, is out. Another change that Disney is doing across the board is to the way guns and blasters are shown. Any gun blaster image where it is directly aimed at the camera or the viewer, the kid watching it, has been removed or will no longer be used again. And what I mean by that is still images, PR shots. So this is a very, very iconic shot that was actually one of the lobby cards, as well as, there's not just one. I mean, there's a ton of shots that were used for publicity for the last 40 years that essentially had a main character aiming their blaster directly at the camera. Not like that, more like this. So that last one was slightly to the left. Here you have Luke directly shooting the camera or the viewer. So these publicity stills will no longer be used. And any shots in the movie, they're very conscious that the blaster is at least at a slight angle, so it is not directly at the viewer. While it's not as big of a deal in new content, and obviously there are plenty of shots of characters holding weapons that are still fine as long as they're, again, to that slight angle, we'll no longer have any shots directly at the viewer. I don't know how this shot will be rectified, but, we'll never see it again. Another thing is death and funerals, and, on-screen deaths. Obviously, on-screen deaths are a major part of the brand. I mean, they have been plot points, and they have been instigators of major sort of change in characters' motivations and pushing forward plot, for lack of a better word, in both the original films, the prequels, and in a lot of the animation. In fact, looking at the recent animation, Clone Wars, it's actually notorious for the number of on-screen deaths that we see, both clones dying and clones killing others. I mean, I know they smash a lot of droids, but there's even a death count that fans have kept track of about which clones kill the most number of people. And there has been a lot of, people getting hit by blasters, and the blasters, going right through their armor and them dying right there on screen. Well, the thing is, with Star Wars, there are two options for weapons. You have, your blaster, and you have another option you can set for.
Set for stun.
So, setting for stun between Star Wars and Star Trek has kind of become a sort of I don't want to say a joke, but a joke, or at least a target of humor over the years. Star Trek tends to always be setting phasers to stun. There's two phases, kill and stun. Really, I guess there's sort of an in-between, but that's basically it. And it's definitely become a gag in pop culture that Star Trek is always setting their phasers to stun, versus in Star Wars, there's literally one shot of them setting their phasers to stun, the one you just saw. And Star Trek setting their phasers to stun has, become part of pop culture. Star Wars, on the other hand, outside of this one shot, it's non-existent. Everyone's always shooting to kill. With The Bad Batch, the new animation that Disney Plus released, a sort of sequel to Clone Wars, I noticed while watching it that these clones, or the Bad Batch, are constantly using the stun setting. And, I did a little quick Google search, and I saw that other people noticed this too. And when you have main characters named Hunter and, named Crosshair, well, you would expect them to be shooting, but no, instead they're constantly stunning their enemies, who are just going to get up and, come after them again. Doesn't seem very in tune with what clones have done, at least the precedent set in Clone Wars. Now, I get that Disney is a very family-friendly company, and this is probably done to make the show friendlier to kids, but as I said, it kind of changes the DNA of the brand. Star Wars is a brand where no one ever sets for stun. It's become a joke over the years. Star Trek sets for stun. Star Wars doesn't, except for that one shot in A New Hope. So obviously, changes are going to continue to happen, and some of them are improvements, like putting Ian McDiarmid in Empire Strikes Back. Some of the changes arguably kind of hurt the brand is maybe not the right word, but at least caused, grumblings. I don't know, Hayden Christensen as a spirit ghost. At least we'll always have the action figures, because one of the nice things about them is they create something called permanence. So we'll always have this Anakin Skywalker figure based on Sebastian Shaw, and we're always going to have all of the previous Slave Leia, or Jabba's Palace Leia, or Hutt Slayer Leia figures, whatever you want to call it. The action figures will live forever, and they create permanence. You can't take that away. It'll always be on your desk. And at least there are some ways of preserving the original trilogy in their original form, be it beta, VHS. I happen to love the widescreen edition that came out right before the special editions, which is one of my favorites. I still keep them in my case. And then, of course, if you have a Laserdisc player, you're all set because those Laserdiscs are never going to corrode the way VHSs do. I had a friend in high school that had the Laserdiscs, and we always enjoyed watching them. There was one time when they were released on DVD, so if you have this set, you're also in luck because it has the original cut. So essentially, Disney has every right to change anything they want about Star Wars. What I kind of feel like as a fan is that whatever changes they make, all I sort of ask is at least make the original version still available. Have them permanently, have them as an option on Disney Plus. Watch the special edition and watch the original version. We all love Star Wars and we all want to remember the way it was originally. And I think that we're sort of owed as fans the access to this. So make all the changes you want. Just let us have our original version too. That's my pitch. Well, I hope you enjoyed this look at some of the changes Disney has been making to Star Wars, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did I miss any major ones? Are there ones that we should also cover? Leave it below and like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.